Way you can get hashtag house and healthy, like playing volleyball, playing pickleball, or playing basketball. So come join the fun and get hashtag house and healthy today.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage Sarah Murr, Chair of the Robbins Regional Chamber.
Good morning. Not quite good afternoon yet. Thank you all for joining us. We want to welcome you all to the 2023 State of Debates in person, as well as on our live stream provided by 13 WMNC. Robbins Air Force Base is the economic driver for Middle Georgia and our state's largest industrial complex. This annual meeting is a testament to how important Robbins, its mission, and the men and women who carry that mission out are to the Middle Georgia community. It is truly a privilege to the Chamber to host this important annual gathering as an extension of our mission to be the catalyst for business growth, convener of leaders and influencers, connector of people and resources, and champion for a thriving community. We have many elected officials, regional champions, local dignitaries, business owners, industry drivers, and development partners here with us today, and we are thankful for your presence. At this time, I would like to ask our Chair-elect, Michael Collins, to come forward and open us up with an invocation, followed by the singing of the national anthem by Ms. Sonia Jim.
Let's bow together in a word of prayer. Father, we praise you today because we are fearfully and wonderfully made. When we reflect upon your majesty, who we are, who are we that you are mindful toward us? For our ways are not your ways, and our thoughts are not your thoughts. Nevertheless, you have enriched us with many blessings, and we thank you for this community. We thank you for all those serving Robbins Air Base, both civilian and enlisted. We thank you for all the men and women around the world who are even now working to secure and protect the liberties that we enjoy in this country. May your blessing, comfort, joy, and peace be with and abide with them in their labors. Use them, Father, to stand against oppression and preserve freedom, no matter where they are. We thank you that when each one of us was like sheep gone astray and turned each one of us to our own way, that you laid upon your Son the iniquity of us all, that through his stripes we are healed, through his suffering we are saved, through his oppression and affliction we are made whole, and through his separation we have been brought near. We thank you for the cross that reminds us that when we would otherwise despair, that you love us as your own. When we were tempted to take credit for the works of our own hands, your cross reminds us that we have nothing to boast of but the dear cross of your Son. In all these blessings, Father, we pray that you would help us to see ways and find ways to be a blessing to others. We thank you for the food presented to us today. May you bless the hands that prepared it. May you use the food we eat to strengthen us to do your will and carry out your calling upon our lives. May your Holy Spirit empower us to love you with all our heart, soul, mind, and strength, and to love one another as we would love ourselves. May the things that we do and say here today be to your glory and honor. Lead us in the way everlasting, for it's in the precious name of Jesus Christ that we pray. Amen. Would you please stand for the national anthem?
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed as the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
The State of the Base event is a signature program for the Robbins Regional Chamber as part of our ongoing Military Affairs Committee engagement. Billy Griggers of Griggers Wealth Management is our chair this year. At this time, I'd like to call him to the stage.
I now can say good afternoon to everybody. Also, they were telling me before I came up, if you have a yellow car outside with the lights on, you may need to go check on it. I think we all have yellow cars today. You can see the pollen everywhere. Wanted to thank the sponsors and tell them how much we appreciate them being involved in the State of the Base. The presenting sponsor is, of course, Jeff Smith Automotive. Our host is Houston Healthcare. Our gold sponsors are Credence Management Solutions, Mercer University, and Terma. Our silver are Best Western Plus, Executive Residency, Grigsby Waterworld Hotel, Cox, Middle Georgia State University, Morris Bank, and Newton Development. If you get a chance, look at your brochure. You'll see all the other people that are listed that are sponsors, and we want to thank them for their participation in this event that gives us a chance to hear about the base and what's going on in the world today. I'd like to now invite Ben Huber from Morris Bank. He is the chairman of the Houston County Development Authority.
Thank you, Billy. We've been over Hubert Herbert. Good. You're good. Last year, I got a chance to do this, and got through and had somebody come up to me and say, "You have such a precious soul." Just translates to, I really feel sorry for you. That, honestly, I've had worse assessments in my life, so I'll take that as a compliment. April has asked me to come back, and she's doubled down on me, so I'm going to make a few sponsorship remarks on behalf of Morris Bank, and then also just report on the Development Authority. So, just on behalf of Morris Bank, we're super proud and grateful to be a sponsor of such a good event. I do want to recognize our Morris Bank table over here. If you raise your hand, that's a group of people that are just into doing good, and I would say that fits our culture. Just people who are getting after it every day and trying to make the most of the resources we've been given. Robbins Air Force Base is a major reason we started here in 2015 with one branch and 7 employees. It's a major reason why we now have 3 branches, an operations center, and 40 employees in this market. And it's a major reason why we feel good about continuing to grow here in this market in the future. So we're proud and great to be a sponsor. And as always, we thank the Chamber for all that they do to help us and help our customer base. Then shifting to the Development Authority, I serve as the chair of the Development Authority, and we have several of our board members are here today. We are set up to attract and recruit new industry. We support existing industry, and we serve to enhance education and workforce development efforts. We do other things, but most of what we do falls under one of those three sort of 4-point efforts. And I reached out to Angie before I came up here and just said, "Could you send me just a couple of notes, just help me out a little bit?" And she sent me 2 pages of like 10 font type notes. Really good. I mean, it was very good. I mean, it was had some reference to Project Synergy, which is a super exciting project. If you don't know about it, please come ask me about it or not. It could be its own program. And then just more recently, our partnership with the 21st Century Partnership and Go Georgia Innovation Project. So both those things were highlighted. There's a lot of other details that highlight the relationship with Robins Air Force Base. It just doesn't take much of a stretch of imagination to think economic development and Robins Air Force Base. There's things go together well. But I did remind her that I am a functioning introvert, and I need just like a summary, just quick thing. And she did give me 3. She said, "Well, really what I want you to say, this is the message." And it's just three points. 1, the base is so vitally important to us on so many levels. 2, we think you're the best, and we are so grateful you're here in our world. And the 3rd, and most importantly, is we being the Development Authority, we being Morris Bank, we being everybody in this room is here to help. So, anyway, thank you.
Next, we'd like to invite up Glenn Stallmacher of the Best Western Residency in Wrigley's Water World. He's the vice chair, I should say, of the Warner Robins Convention and Business Bureau. We want to welcome him. He's going to speak.
Good afternoon, everybody. I got to tell you, I got a call last year from a new board member on the chamber, and he's become an extremely good friend of mine. And he said, "Brother," he said, "I'm not very good at this, but I've been challenged with calling people and asking them to sponsor some things." So the pressure was intense. How do you say no to Colonel Lane? So obviously I went back to my team, and we all opted to select this event to be a part of, and very proud to do so. Secondly, the thing I wanted to mention is my first experience with Robins was when I was a young airman, and my lovely wife and I were headed to Florida. And I said, "I've always heard good things about Robins Air Force Base." So we detoured off of I-75, and it seemed like we drove 200 miles to the gate. There was hardly anything in between, and I thought, my gosh, they put this base in the middle of nowhere. And at that time, so I kind of reflected on that. At that time, there were 18,800 civilians and military supporters that were at Robins Air Force Base. And interestingly enough, there were 7 hotels. So that's a lot of folks in a big base to have only 7 hotels. So moving forward, we now have 23,000 supporters at Robins Air Force Base and 27 hotels. So that's a big difference. And we talk about the impact that Robins Air Force Base makes. So that tells you right there that it is substantial. I'm also on the CBB board, and something that's very vital is the amount of hotel-motel tax that we collect. So I don't have a statistic from when the CBB was first developed, which was 1994. I don't know that they even had a hotel-motel back then. So again, moving forward, in 2022, we collected over $2,700,000 in hotel-motel tax money. And that is from people coming to do business in Warner Robins, visit Warner Robins, and staying in Warner Robins. So that is a substantial piece of business. So again, we're very, very proud to sponsor this event, and we'll do so going forward as well. But thank you very much.
I'm going to turn the program back over to Sarah Murphy, and glad to have you all here. Thank you.
thank you to our sponsors. As you can see, the impact of Robins Air Force Base is felt across every aspect of our community. Supporting Robins isn't an obligation here, it's a way of life. Our support of Robins is as much about supporting neighbors and friends as it is about supporting the warfighter protecting our freedom. Let us never forget the incredible impact of both important groups. Team Robins members are part of our community, whether they're here for a short assignment or the long haul, and it's an important part of our organizational fabric to support both the missions at Robins and the men and women protecting our freedom and national security. Whether it's hosting an airman dinner, providing resources to newcomers and their families to acclimate them to the new assignment, investing with immediate needs, or advocating for military-friendly legislation under the Gold Dome, we love Robins, and that's why here we say every day in Middle Georgia is Armed Forces Appreciation Day. With that, it's now my pleasure to turn the stage over to my good friend and the past chair of the chamber, Mr. David Dancy, our moderator and host for today's program.
Our moderator for today's event, Mr. David Dancy.
Sounds so pretty cool. What's going on? How are y'all? All right, we got to liven up here. I'm not telling a dad joke. We save that for exit issues. If you don't know, then you can come to exit and you find out about that. But I want to, first of all, thank all of you for joining us today. This is a big event for us. It allows us to get together with the men and women of the armed forces, hear about what's going on, what's going great in their communities, and see how we can continue to help them to strive to be the best. Let me tell you how this program will work. So we'll have our featured panelists come up, but they'll be introduced by our community partners who are also sponsors. And so I've said enough. Let's get it started.
Please welcome to the stage Jim Hundley, Senior Director of Engineering and Programs for MERC, Mercer Engineering Research Center.
Good afternoon. I'd like to say Mercer University and MERC are honored to be here today at the State of the Base. And I was thinking how I was going to start this out. My wife being a Mercer graduate, she talked to me a little bit. And I was going to ask, I won't ask for it, but I was thinking about a show of hands. Would everybody here that's either went to Mercer, had a family member go to Mercer, knew somebody who went to Mercer, or worked somebody at Mercer, just raise your hand. And it would be about everybody. And Mercer is deeply woven into the fabric of Georgia and Middle Georgia. If you look for Mercer graduates in Middle Georgia, they can be everywhere. They can be your teacher, your preacher, your doctor, your nurse, your pharmacist, your lawyer, your accountant, or an engineer. Mercer graduates tend to stay in Georgia and tend to stay in Middle Georgia. And when they do that, they become double pairs and get their advanced degrees from Mercer University. Now, Mercer's partnership with Robins Air Force Base is strong and has grown over the last 40 years. In the early 80s, there was a shortage of engineers. That's a surprise to everybody. And they talked with Mercer University, and Mercer University stood up. Starting about 1983, they started it, and in 1985, they had the first class of engineers start at Mercer University. 2 years later, Mercer Engineering Research Center was started to be the applied engineering arm and research arm of Mercer University and a partner to Robins Air Force Base. In 2020, Mercer stepped up again and Blue Sky was opened. State-of-the-art software development center where they can have students, engineering, computer science, across the spectrum, work with engineering professionals from Robins Air Force Base, solving complex problems today. This partnership will continue to grow. But now it is my honor to introduce Colonel Lindsey Groves. Now I have to read. Colonel Groves is the 78th Air Base Wing Commander, Robins Air Force Base, Georgia. She commands more than 2,700 personnel assigned to 3 groups: a communications director, an operations support squadron, and a controller squadron, with 17 wing staff and 17 wing staff agencies. She is currently responsible for logistics, medical, civil engineering, security, mission support functions, in addition to managing facilities and equipment valued at over $8.1 billion, and an operating budget of over $170 million. She trains, deploys, redeploys more than 1,800 airmen annually in support of Air and Space Expeditionary Force and the combat commander requirements. Additionally, Colonel Groves serves as installation commander, supporting the base's 54 mission partners, including the Major Command, Air Logistics Complex, 3 wings, on a 6,900-acre installation, Georgia's largest single-site industrial complex. She's also responsible for the safety, security, morale, and welfare of more than 23,000 Air Force airmen assigned to Robins Air Force Base and 28,000 local dependents and retirees. Colonel Groves. Thank you for your
All right.
Well, welcome.
Thank you for having, is this on?
It's on.
All right, thank you for having us. Of
Yours is lower than mine, though.
course.
Of course, they need to hear me more.
Of course. Of course.
So it's interesting, you know, I think I probably would have introduced you as like, you're kind of a big beat. That's what it sounds like in essence, right?
I keep trying to convince him to give it a short bio, but somehow the long bio keeps getting out there.
All right, so I'm not gonna make you nervous. I told her beforehand I was gonna ask her about the Robins Cup and, you know, our prowess and success, but we're not gonna go into that. So
I
let's-
turned over the captaincy this year, so we're done with that.
No problem. All right, let's start with our first question, Colonel Groves. Explain to us the importance of Robins Air Force Base within the larger Air Force and within the national defense strategy.
First of all, like Ben, I am a functioning introvert. You know, unfortunately, he always gets to go before me, and he always shows me up. So our national defense strategy focus is to ensure that our warfighter are capable of dominating peer-to-peer competition. And as we enter this age of increasing strategic competition, we're facing authoritarian regimes such as the People's Republic of China. And the People's Republic of China, to be frank, are showing an increased intent and capability to disrupt the world order, one that the U.S. and its allies have spent many, many years fostering an open, secure, and prosperous world order. So the problem is that our military that we have now is optimized for the fight that we've had for the last 20 years. And we've been charged with modernizing that force. And so over the next several years, that's what you're going to see, and that's what the National Defense Strategy is getting at. Our mission partners here at Robins Air Force Base, we have embraced our Chief of Staff's charge, which is to accelerate change or lose. And that is a fight that we intend to win. So we are going to excel at our legacy missions while we continue to modernize and while we continue to make this base the premier site for logistics and operations throughout the Air Force. So you're going to hear a lot from our mission partners here today, but from the 50,000-foot view, I'm just going to kind of give you a snapshot of how Robins Air Force Base fits into our national defense strategy. We have the Air Logistics Complex, which has been and will be the cornerstone of Robins Air Force Base. They are charged and they will continue to perform outstanding logistics support and maintenance on 1/3 of our nation's air power. But more than that, they're accelerating into the future with their software engineering, component repair, technology, and all the things that they're doing down there. And you're going to hear more from General Evelyn about that. Additionally, as we start to sunset Baystar's partners on the other end of the ramp, we're bringing on 4 new mission sets. And those mission sets are going to become the cornerstone of our nation's command and control platform. All told, Robins Air Force Base is absolutely postured to support our national defense strategy, as well as our Secretary of the Air Force's operational imperatives. We are really excited to be that platform going into the future.
Excellent. Thank you for that. Next question, give us an update on Robins Air Force Base's latest economic impact analysis.
Okay. I feel like this is really the one that everybody is actually here to hear me talk about, right? Okay, so I have clip notes for this one because there's a lot of numbers involved, as there were last year. So we do have the latest FY22 fiscal year economic impact analysis. So before I get into the numbers, though, I need to provide a little bit of context. So the methodology has changed about how the Air Force calculates economic impact over the last 3 years. Notably, well, let's start by saying regardless of how it's calculated, apples to apples comparison, our economic impact has remained steady and strong over the last several years. For many years prior to FY21, fiscal year 21, we used what's called the regional multiplier. So the regional multiplier factors in all of those local economic factors that surround an installation. In FY21, the Department of Defense noted that all of our regional multipliers were extremely outdated, 10 to 15 years outdated. So installations all used the state multiplier, which incorporates all of those economic factors throughout the state, including major metropolitan areas. So it appeared that we had a huge jump up in FY21. The total economic figure, though, this year is in line with the previous years. Like I said, if we recalculated last year using that regional factor, we are right there in that strong economic impact. So, having said that, the fiscal year FY22 Robbins total economic impact is $3.57 billion, and we are proud to say that we maintain this high level of economic impact through post-COVID recovery and through the economic challenges that are facing our nation today. So broken down, the economic impact equates to a payroll of approximately $2.8 billion and direct base expenditures of $770 million. So I'm going to talk through a couple of the factors that go into this economic impact. Starting with our payroll. So if you look at real dollars, taking out those economic multipliers, we had a small decline of less than 1% in our total payroll expenditures this fiscal year. So this is largely due to attrition in the workforce, right? We see help wanted signs all over the place throughout the region. We're seeing the same thing at Robbins Air Force Base. Additionally, it's not uncommon at Robbins to see employees that have been there for 30, 40, 50 years. We had a lot of people hired back in the 80s and 90s, early 2000s, and that workforce is getting ready to retire. So we've seen that natural attrition combined with an increased retirement rate. So as of yesterday, we had approximately 450 vacancies at Robbins Air Force Base. You may have seen down in Macon, there was a civilian hiring fair. That fair had 7,500 free applicants. So we're hiring at Robbins Air Force Base. But we do expect to see this payroll number start to increase over the next several years as we hire, as we fill those positions. The important thing to note is that the positions are there. We haven't decreased positions, just that we just have vacancies in those positions. So next thing I'd like to talk about just real quick is our direct expenditures. So over the last past fiscal year, we saw an approximate 17% decrease in direct expenditures. And I'm going to kind of break this down into three categories. The first is a change in buying patterns, okay? So the elephant in the room is COVID. And over the last 2 years, we've all spent a lot of money on COVID. Personal protective equipment, masks, sanitizer, et cetera, et cetera. Well, at Robbins, we spent a lot of money and had several large contracts purchasing those things. The good news is that we no longer have the need to purchase those in as large quantities. But that does, that accounts for that kind of artificial spike that we've seen in our direct expenditures over the last couple of years. Additionally, as telework has kind of become a way of life and the norm, we do have employees that are continuing to telework. So we've seen a small decrease in our just office supply purchases because we have more people that are doing some regular recurring telework. And finally, we've seen some reduction in our construction, operations, and maintenance projects, largely due to inflation. Basically, the dollars aren't stretching as far as they used to when it comes to doing projects. The good news is though projects are still awarded, they've just been pushed to subsequent years. So when we look at our workforce, I'll just touch real quickly on our numbers. So this year, we had a total population of 22,636 personnel assigned. Broken down, that's about just over 14,000 civilians, about 5,500 uniformed service members, and about 2,800 other, like our non-appropriated funds personnel and our contractors. So, like I said, it may look like there's a slight decrease over the previous years, which is a true statement, but like I said, those positions are still there, and we're actively trying to fill them. The other thing that number shows is a slight decrease in our military personnel. Not to worry, as we transition missions, especially our JSTARS mission, some of those personnel have started to retrain into other positions and move on. But as we bring on those 4 new mission sets, we're going to start to see those military positions climb back up to their regular levels. Also, just a quick mention about our economic impact with education. Military tuition assistance last year was about just over $2 million. Our civilian tuition assistance was about $460,000, and our federal impact aid, which impacts obviously all of our school systems, was over $1.1 million. The final point that I'm going to make here is about our contracts. So across the United States, the total value of Robins Air Force Base contracts was $6.1 billion. Within the state of Georgia, we saw $660 million of contracts, and we're proud to say that in Middle Georgia, we had 30% of that amount, totaling over $192 million, stay right here in Houston and Bibb counties. So the number of the top contractors have stayed pretty steady from year to year. But in summary, Robins Air Force Base is facing a lot of the same pressures. We may be a federal institution, but we're not immune to the things that are happening outside of the base. Having said all of that, we are proud to say that Robins Air Force Base is as strong of an economic engine as we've ever been, and we only see that growing in the future.
Wow, that's a lot. That is a
That's why I
lot.
had to write it down.
Yeah. Well, I see a lot of smiling faces of those who are benefiting from that trickle-down effect. So thank you for that. We appreciate it. Let me ask you, what do you see the future looking like for Robins Air Force Base?
So I'll take a moment to kind of wax nostalgic here for a minute. As I approach, this is my last State of the Base. As I look to move on this summer, not sure I'm going yet, but I just know I'm not going to be here. So I've been blessed with my family to have been here for the last 4 years and to see Robins Air Force Base and Middle Georgia grow in that time. And I can tell you without a doubt that the future for Robins Air Force Base is strong. We are going to continue to modernize. We are going to continue to innovate. We are going to continue to increase the viability of this institution here at Robins. I want to emphasize 2 things. The first one, I think I said a couple of times already, Robins is hiring. We are looking from everything from childcare professionals to engineers and software experts and everything in between, just like everybody else. But we just want to offer that. We have a fantastic workforce out there, and we are always looking to add team members looking to serve their country. The second thing is we want to do business with our local partners. You're going to hear Colonel Pesky talk here in a minute about contracting, but we really want to make it easy for our Middle Georgia partners to do business with the base, to competitively to work with us and to support the mission that we've got going on there. Like I said, we have many projects that got pushed into subsequent years, so we're really looking to ramp that up, especially as we have the new mission sets coming on. There's a lot of stuff going on at Robins Air Force Base. So I'm going to take an opportunity, kind of stole my thunder here, but I'm going to do some audience participation. So if you have worked at Robins Air Force Base or have a family member who works at Robins Air Force Base, please raise your hand. That's a lot of people. Okay, okay. If you have a friend who works at Robins Air Force Base, raise your hand. Y'all should be raising your hand because I'm all your friends, okay? All right. So, okay, push your hands. Okay, so that's about everybody in the room. You are not going to see that at other military installations. That is not something that you're going to see at the big bases, your big cities, okay? The connectedness in this room and with this community is beyond anything that you're going to see. So we haven't even mentioned the 41,000 family members and retirees and veterans that are attached to Robins Air Force Base. We have not even mentioned the extended family members of our civilian airmen who are at Robins Air Force Base, right? So Robins Air Force Base is surrounded by a fence, right? But I think what we have done over the last several years is we have increased the transparency of that fence. And we want you to understand what Robins Air Force Base does, what we bring, and what you bring to the fight with us. So Robins Air Force Base is an economic engine, but it's way more than that. We're all connected and we're all part of this fight together as we move to strengthen our nation. So I'm going to just say a couple of things. We appreciate our local lawmakers. We appreciate what you've done to make it welcoming for our uniformed airmen and their families and their spouses and their children. whether it's school choice or spouse licensure, what would you do to, with the community to protect the base, from encroachment issues and make sure that we maintain a viable airfield. We appreciate the community focus on education, especially STEM education, because we just don't have enough. We haven't created enough, and we have to do that. So from our Museum of Aviation Foundation, let's start with as young as you can, Development Authority, our boards of education, our local universities like Mercer, CGTC, Middle Georgia State, Fort Valley State, Georgia College State, many others. We appreciate what you've done and what you continue to do. And finally, we all understand what's at stake. We understand that this is not about the base, but this is about our nation's defense and our contribution to that. We are absolutely proud to be here. You can't spend any time in Middle Georgia without hearing every day in Middle Georgia is Armed Forces Appreciation Day. But at Robins, we like to turn that on our head and say that every day at Robins Air Force Base is Middle Georgia Appreciation Day. We are humbled to be part of this world-class community. And there is no place that I would rather be serving as a commander than right here in Middle Georgia. So thank you.
Please welcome Mike Chavon, Senior Vice President of Finance and Operations and General Manager of Terma Inc.
Good afternoon. Welcome everyone. My name is Mike Chavon of Terma. We're a proud sponsor of this fantastic event. If you don't know what we do, Terma is an aerospace and defense company with facilities right here in Warner Robins, and our U.S. headquarters located in Atlanta. Terma is a proud provider of electronic warfare and self-protection systems to the warfighter, including many aircraft platforms located right here at Robins Air Force Base. If you're interested in what Terma does, I encourage everyone to sign up for our Business After Hours event next Thursday, March 9th at our Warner Robins facility. You can sign up for this great event right at the Robins Chamber website. And we'd be happy to see you and show you around our facility and talk to you more about what we do and how we provide great systems to the warfighter. Now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to introduce Brigadier General John Eberlin. Brigadier General John A. Eberlin is the commander, Warner Robins Air Logistics Complex at Robins Air Force Base. As the commander, he serves a world-class workforce of more than 7,200 personnel. The complex performs program depot maintenance and modification on all variants of the F-15, C-130, C-5, C-17, and Special Operations Forces aircraft, as well as the RQ-4, E-8C, and TH-1H. Additionally, he is responsible for the maintenance, repair, and overhaul of diverse aircraft components, avionics, and electronic warfare equipment, along with development and sustainment of mission-critical software, test program sets, and automated test equipment. Please join me in welcoming Brigadier General John Eberlin.
Be careful, no one about to fall off. How you doing, Brigadier General Eberlin?
Good.
Sound excited?
I'm an introvert too.
Everybody can't get up here and say that. That's not gonna work. All right, so let's get started. Can you talk about your vision and goals for the Warner Robins Air Logistics Complex in the coming year?
So our vision is to be the Department of Defense depot of choice. We have 3 air logistics complexes in the United States. We have one of them here in Middle Georgia, on Robins Air Force Base. And again, like Colonel Droz alluded to, it's a third of our maintenance, repair, and overhaul capability in the Air Force. We want people in the department to bring workload to our depot. And we're gonna do that through an integrated team delivering innovative capabilities. Priority one for us is accomplishing our mission, which is the maintenance, repair, and overhaul of the weapon systems we have today, as well as the components that support those platforms, and the coding and everything that goes into operational flight programs and test programs that our software coders have to do. And then you look at two, we have to develop our team and our culture. The mechanics, we're always going to need aircraft mechanics, but the skills that we see in the future are going to be a little different in the future than they are today. If you start looking at where industry and where the maintenance, repair, and overhaul capabilities are going, it's becoming more automated. We have robotics. We are a DoD leader in robotics within our depot. And so the user interface with a robot is a little different than it is hands-on with the equipment. And so the skill set's a little different. And so we have to be forward-thinking in terms of how we develop our workforce. We also have to be attuned to capitalizing on diversity, equity, inclusion. I'm a firm believer that different perspectives always need to be weighed because you get better and more innovative solutions to problems. Many hands make light work. And the more perspectives and the way we interact with each other is going to deliver the solutions that we need to get the job done. And so we have work to do there. We are we're on the leading edge in the Air Force Sustainment Center in terms of these programs. And we have to deliberately develop the folks, who don't necessarily, look, I make it a point to mentor people that don't look like me. And we all have different backgrounds and grew up different ways. But, we have to be respectful and understand how we all interact with each other. And so that's truly one of our most important things. And I'm a firm believer that that's paramount to developing the kind of leader that we need tomorrow. 3 is improving our processes. That is an ongoing thing in the depot environment. We are very process driven because if you have standard work and you do standard processes, you reduce the variability and reduce the likelihood for error and decrease risk. And so as we get more automated, the margin for error is less, but we have to make sure that we're doing all we can with what we have. And as weapon systems get older, the challenge is, you have diminishing manufacturing sources, and we have to capitalize on 3D printing and additive manufacturing to help combat some of those issues so we can maintain and keep what we have right now to be able to fight tonight. And finally, it's investing for the future. It's not lost on me. I have a responsibility in terms of what we have to do today, but I also have a responsibility to make sure this complex is strong for the future. And so when you look at the kinds of facilities and the things we need, and you start looking at the way the organic industrial base, a lot of our facilities in the depot were built in the 40s. And that's not unique to Robbins. It's the same situation. A lot of facilities out at the Ogden Air Logistics Complex in Utah for 1940s facilities. Our depots have been around for a while. And so as we look at the future, we have to be agile. And when you build a new aircraft hangar on a depot installation, it needs to be multi-capable. It needs to be large enough to accommodate a large body aircraft, but be nimble and agile enough to be able to turn into a fighter depot line if we needed to. And so that way it postures us to be able to accept more workload and different kinds of workload. We also have to be open-minded in terms of embracing technology and working and continuing to work with institutions of higher learning in terms of sending the demand signal in terms of the skill set we need for the future. And that's, those 4 areas, our team is committed to really working hard to get there. And, I can't think of a better place to be than here in Middle Georgia to get it done. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you. You know, you kind of touched on this. You can tell me if there's anything else related to areas of growth concerning your department, specifically how it impacts Warner Robins ALC.
So our chief force and secretary have been very, very clear that, you know, the force we have today is not what's going to be needed to be successful in a near peer fight. And so what you're seeing, I mean, recently Northrop Grumman had to roll out the B-21. And you hear words like open-ended architecture. You hear the chief and the secretary talking about next generation air dominance. A lot of these newer platforms, they're more capable, but they also have more open-ended architecture, which is more programming and software independent or dependent, if you will, and less hardware. You know, you always need hardware, but the hardware is going to be more capable and programmable and adaptable to where it's going to create a need, if you will, where you're going to see the need for software engineers and a lot of the folks that deal with the open-ended architecture type of operations with these new platforms. It's going to make the demand signal grow even more than what we have today. And we've got some pretty capable platforms today, but it's going to continue to grow, which, you know, the future of the depot and what tomorrow's depot is going to look like is not necessarily what it's going to look like today. We might not have as many aircraft overhaul lines. We're going to need artisans and mechanics for that from now till we stop flying airplanes. However, what you're going to see is a larger growth in the areas such as electronics, commodities, and software. So, you know, just as many jobs, just as much workload, but a little bit, in my mind, redistribution, if you would.
Thank you. Last question. How does community support enable you with the partnerships to be able to accomplish such things at Warner Robins County?
So this is probably the thing I'm the most proud of, or I'm the beneficiary of a lot of leaders before me that are a lot smarter, and I had a lot bigger vision, you know, than I did, or I ever would, like John Bennett, who's here today. Raise your hand, John. Thank you. So this is the mission and what we do at Robins Air Force Base begins and ends with this community. The community is the connective tissue that holds everything together. Those of us in here wearing the uniform, who are not guardsmen, we're here for pretty much a set period of time. But I will tell you, the majority of my workforce, or our workforce in the complex, like the other air logistics complexes, I've got three and four generations of men and women working in our complex, and it's the same way with a lot of our other air logistics complexes. My vice director, Ms. Dana Stanley, has spent her whole career here in that complex, you know, and in other organizations on Robins Air Force Base. So those are the men and women who were here before we got here, and they're going to be here after we leave. And so they see people like me and Colonel Droz come and go, and we have our turn, and they bring us into it and let us in and allow us to lead, which is awesome. But I will tell you that the community here and the educational partnerships that we have far exceeds anything I've ever seen at any other depot base. I'm not going to go down the list because I'll leave somebody out and it'll upset somebody, so I'm not going to do it. But yet, you know, it's software engineering, it's industrial engineering, it's process engineers, and it's probably 3 to 4 times what the other two complexes have in terms of a partnership. And what that allows us to do is develop shared understanding with one another. It allows me to communicate a demand signal to the institutions of higher learning in terms of what we're going to need, but at the same time, it allows us to learn from the educational institutions about what kind of cutting edge technology is out there that we might be able to incorporate into our depot processes that maybe we haven't thought of. And then you look, okay, so outside the fence line, Colonel Rose talked about Project Synergy, which is a software lab, right, that's outside of our gates, where we have partnerships where high school students come in and do concurrent enrollment. College students come in and do internships, and they get exposed to doing software engineering kind of depot work, and get to see it on the ground floor. And then at the same time, our engineers get to interact with them and recruit a little bit and get to folks at an earlier age. We also have a software lab up in Macon called Blue Sky. And it's a similar setup where, and it's a very great partnership with a lot of our folks there with Mercer University, who's been very, very good to us and very, very supportive of what we do. And then you start looking at what's on the horizon in terms of what we're doing, and you'll see a few more partnerships being signed in probably the next half a year with more historical Black college universities. That's coming, in order to be able to push the envelope of more diversity. But I'm the benefactor for years and years and years of great relations with the community and forward-thinking leaders that identified the secret sauce really early on. And, my goal is to continue to improve and continue to grow that partnership from now on into the future.
Excellent. Thank you. I'm going to challenge that statement about being an introvert, but Brigadier General Evelyn.
Please welcome to the stage Jason Gerard, Principal, Credence Management Solutions, LLC.
Good afternoon. Credence is honored again this year to support this outstanding event. A little bit about Credence. Credence was established back in 2007. Fast forward to 2023, Credence provides worldwide support through over 70 prime contracts. Here locally at Robbins, our presence and support goes back to 2014. We're led by Ms. Deborah Davis. I've got seven of our senior leaders, 2 tables right there in the middle. Ladies and gentlemen, raise your hand. Couldn't do it without those fine folks. If you want to know more about Credence after this, just find any one of us and we'd be happy to talk to you about our capabilities and what we bring to the table. Credence brings large business capability with small business agility. We're broken into 4 distinct key areas: mission support, technology and engineering, mission strategy, and health. We have a very large and growing health and international development presence. So without further ado, let me introduce Colonel Jeff. The leadership at the center. He executes authority in all phases of contracting in support of the Sustainment Center, Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, and installation mission partners. Additionally, he provides training and development for more than 400 contracting and administrative professionals responsible for obligating over $7 billion annually. Colonel Pesky.
Colonel Pesky, thank you for joining us today.
Oh, thanks.
Are you excited?
I'm nervous.
No need to be nervous.
I can't say I'm an introvert, right?
No,
you can't say that.
That's
You can bring that music back up. Isn't that, doesn't that music just make you get the goosebumps? That's like that. That's recruiting music.
Only if you didn't hear it all night last night as you were rehearsing. So you've got a lot of responsibility. Let's talk a little bit about it. Got a couple questions for you. What is the mixture of contract opportunities at Robbins Air Force Base? What types of supply services are your largest contract spend, and how much is awarded locally? And no, I won't repeat that.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a lot there. Well, I guess from a broad perspective, we we do have, that's what we do, supplies and services at Robins Air Force Base. So we do that via a system called the North American Industry Classification System, otherwise known as a NAICS code. And so at Robins, we procure over 300 NAICS codes items specifically. Now, a large portion of those, as you can well assume, are for aircraft and engineering services. In FY22, we allocated over $6 billion of your taxpayer money. Now, that was about $1 billion less than last year. And, as we've heard, a lot of that had to do with COVID. So your contracted entity not only does a lot of contracting for aircraft and engineering services, but we also support the secretary with any kind of requirements that are worldwide. Of that, as Colonel Droz said, we obligated a little over $660 million just within the state of Georgia. So within the state of Georgia, that's how many contracts went to the private industry. And then of that, I know she said Houston and Bibb. I just kind of broke it down to just Houston County only, but we obligated a little over 800 or 182 million just for Houston County.
Pretty impressive. It's a lot of money. That money makes the world go round, as they say, right?
Well, it is, right? Right, yeah. So, if Major Payne, anybody knows Major Payne, we're in the business of spending money, and business is good. My wife told me, she's like, I am not good at this, but I said, there's a lot of people here, and they've got cameras on us. She's like, don't say anything stupid.
I can promise you haven't. No, I'm just kidding. So, how do you meet people and learn about opportunities for doing business with things? How does that?
Okay, so if you want to meet and learn how to do business with the Air Force, the first thing I recommend is everybody get onto the website to sam.gov. That's sam.gov.
Spell it one more time.
It cannot get any simpler than that. But if you go out there and you kind of register yourself, that way you can actually see all the different contracts, all the different requirements that not only are at Robins Air Force Base, but with all federal agencies. And then beyond that, we actually co-sponsor the Robins Requirements Symposium. So we're doing that this year. It's actually the 23rd of this month. We co-sponsor that with the National Defense Industrial Association. And that, so I would encourage folks to go out there to the website, ndacg.com, to register for that. And then lastly, what we do, so our contracting folks, we actually host an industry day once a month. It's every Tuesday, the first Tuesday of every month, out there at the museum. And that is just a chance for businesses to come and see what kind of requirements are out there, see what we're working on, and to meet with our contracting officers, our acquisition officers, and just have a chat and get the information.
Thank you for that. So we can't say we don't know how to do it now. He's told us everything we need to know, right?
Very good.
All right. As the business opportunity focal point for Robins, what has the local Air Force contracting unit done to ensure workforce flexibility initiatives, such as telework, will not degrade the ability to connect with those that manage contracting opportunities and or monitor contract performance? You might want to read that.
Well,
Yes.
Give the contract.
That's hard work. It feels like it's written in next code, actually. Go ahead.
Right? Wow, what exciting times we're in, right? With telework. Now, we have made great strides in this. Just last year, the 78th Air Base Wing, they kind of introduced the soft phone concept. So if you're not familiar with soft phones, essentially what that is, it's, we used to have, all of our employees would sit at a desk. At that desk, you would have a landline, your phone right there with the number tied to it, and you could call up your CEO and, say, hey, I got a question. Now with the advent of telework, those landlines are, they're not at their desk. So what we've done is we've actually taken their software that takes their number, ties it to their laptop, their computer, which they have at their house, and they can talk through their computer just like they were sitting at their desk. So wherever they're at, whenever they're working, that is one way that people can get a hold of them. The second thing is Teams, Microsoft Teams. We've really embraced Teams and using Teams. I mean, it is just it's a required use application that all of our contracting officers and contract managers utilize. We can interact with everybody within our office, and then we can also interact with industry, private industry. I mean, it's actually better than calling you on the phone, because you can actually almost have a one-on-one virtual interaction with us there. And then lastly, again, building that stronger connection with our local industry partners is that monthly every Tuesday, same time, same Tuesday, that we're out there at the museum. And if you have questions, that's how you can reach us. So we try to make ourselves very accessible to the community and to the public.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
Please help me welcome Dr. David Jenks, Provost for Middle Georgia State University.
Good afternoon, everybody. That's not good enough. Good afternoon, everybody. It's always interesting to put together a group, feed them a bunch of food, and then make them sit for 45 minutes. So just a little bit of excitement. I am not an introvert, not even remotely. We are so excited to be here today. My name is David Jenks. I have the privilege of being the provost at Middle Georgia State University. My team, just a quick shout out, is sitting right here at the table. Everybody wave. Good to have everybody here. We can't do half of the work that we do without the team that we have. And one of the things I've enjoyed about this thus far is, one of the things we teach in leadership is right leader at the right time. And it just appears to me that in Robbins, with the Chamber, with Robbins Air Force Base, and with a lot of the partners, we have the right leaders in the right place at the right time. And we are so excited about our partnerships that we have in place. I'm excited to announce that Middle Georgia State University will be offering an Associate of Science and Bachelor of Science at the request of the base, I think it was about a year and a half ago. That degree was approved by the Board of Regents earlier this semester and will be offered this fall. So we are going to be producing graduates for all those jobs. And if you want to train up, we are enrolling. Stephen Schultheis is right here. We also have a new Center for Software Innovation and Entrepreneurship. We were considering some revisions on Thomas Hall. It sits right out there on Watson Boulevard. And for whoever it was that called us on Christmas Eve and let us know that water was flowing out our front door from the fire suppression system, thank you. So we are going to move forward with those renovations. And it's going to be much larger and expansive. Never waste a good crisis, right? Today, I am introducing Colonel Brian Clough. He serves as the Deputy Director of Engineering and Technical Management Directorate for the Air Force Sustainment Center at operating location Robbins Air Force Base, Georgia. Colonel Clough leads a staff of 23 civilians and military personnel to support more than 2,000 scientists, engineers, and engineering technicians executing a $2 billion annual workload. He oversees $27 million in technology insertion programs across 2 centers and 4 program offices. Colonel Clough is responsible for the annual recruiting and hiring of both entry-level and experienced engineers. In his role as the base functional area manager for the 62nd Developed Engineer of Career Field, he guides 36 Air Force military engineers. His directorate provides subject matter experts in non-destructive inspection to enable engineering activities on 4 weapon system platforms. In addition, the directorate works initiatives to provide solutions for the center's engineering enterprise. If you've looked at the program and checked that pronunciation, because that was the one thing that made me the most nervous, I had to make sure I got that right. It is Clough. I got the opportunity to meet him. It is Clough. It rhymes with rough and tough. His words, not mine. Ladies and gentlemen, Colonel Clough.
David, you are not wrong. I tell you, man, I was nervous about that one. Remember that, but you had to announce it before me, so it didn't matter. Colonel Clough, we both got it down, right? We're good.
You got it. I will answer just about anything, but that is correct.
Okay, all right. Let's talk about what you got going on. One of the first questions I have here is related to the outlook for your division. And so, what's the outlook for hiring scientists, engineers, and technicians in the coming year, and how are you meeting that?
Well, that's a pretty easy question to answer. We've already touched on it several times. The outlook is fantastic. There is no dearth of opportunities. I will say just the current year's forecast for scientists and engineers alone at Robbins is roughly 260. So that's 260 people we're looking to hire as new engineers. That's not necessarily the mid-level transitioning folks that are coming and going. So great opportunities there. If you expand the aperture just a little bit, I know we're talking specifically Robbins here, but we've mentioned the acquisition and sustainment enterprise across the Air Force, which includes our sister units at Utah, Oklahoma, Ohio. And then you're talking in the neighborhood of 1,000 scientists and engineers. So again, here at Robbins, if you include the technicians who have to continue to operate and sustain the depot maintenance lines, there is no limit to the opportunities for jobs. If you have a technical background and are interested in a technical line of work, there's a help wanted sign at the front gate of Robbins. So how are we getting after that? It's in a multitude of ways. One is the old-fashioned passive way. You post a help wanted sign, you put a job advertisement on USA Jobs or LinkedIn, and you hope somebody applies and sees that job. We're also being much more proactive. General Evelyn talked about educational partnerships. We view those as a tool of many uses, not the least of which is recruiting and hiring, where we can go out to, and we have relationships with virtually every university and college in the state that has a technical program. But we've extended our relationships as far as Puerto Rico, Alabama, Florida, so we're all over the Southeast. And we view these relationships as a way to establish an enduring partnership with faculty and students at the universities, making sure that Robbins Air Force Base is first and foremost in people's consciousness as students are going through the program. We can provide mentors to actually mentor students directly, talk in classrooms, participate on engineering projects with students, all hopefully tying back to a future with us here at Robbins. Another method we obviously use is we attend every recruiting job fair we can find. You should be able to find a Robbins Air Force Base engineering technical recruiting table if you're at a university that has any kind of technical program. To date, just in the spring season, we'll call it, we're up around 30 recruiting events that we've gone and attended. And as you heard, my staff is pretty small. I've got 2 or 3 people that generally do recruiting, but they combine with folks from the complex and across the base, and we go out and we tell the story, and we find the story is pretty compelling, and it gets a lot of young people interested in what we do. Last but not least, I'll talk about a little bit about our internship programs. We have internships and scholarship programs that currently have about 150 people involved across the base in different organizations where they get to spend a year to 3 years interning or working during the summer while they're on a scholarship. And a large percentage, we're pretty proud of the percentage of those internships that turn into full-time career employees when they're done, because they get exciting work as interns. They get to see the impact across the country, across really globally, with the work they get to do here at Robbins. So those are just some of the ways, obviously, on a daily basis, we're out hunting talent, and any way we can find it, we're willing to try.
Very good. Listen, I'm just gonna tell you, you know, you were talking about the areas. I perked up when you said Puerto Rico. I'm gonna tell Delta that Puerto Rico was part of the Southeast when I fly next. You should get a discount. Just kidding. So, very good. You know, when we talk about the nature, though, of what you're doing, what about the nature of maintenance and manufacturing? One of the questions I have here is, as they're changing and becoming more automated and digital, how are you ensuring the workforce has the skills required for tomorrow while also meeting the needs of today?
Another great question, and thanks again, General Everland, for the lead in on that. He hit pretty hard on this topic too. And I'm also glad you kind of closed that question with talking about ensuring we meet the needs for today, because as the General said, we are never going to not need the artisan mechanic who's bending sheet metal on the line. That will exist as long as we're fixing aircraft. But with that said, we do have to acknowledge that, you know, we're not necessarily going to replace those skills. We're going to add more skill sets to our workforce as we get into robotics, artificial intelligence, additive manufacturing, industrial Internet of Things, and then all of the networking and cybersecurity skills that enable all of those things. Obviously, we're going to need a new workforce or a workforce with new skill sets to move all that forward. So we're getting after that in a couple of ways. Primarily, we're talking, partnering with universities and technical colleges about what the requirements are, and then having them apply their expertise to develop curriculum that produces talent along those lines, so that on the day they graduate, they're ready to start working. The train-up will be minimal. We've actually had the opportunity to partner with a consortium up in Ohio where they've already done this program. They had a congressional funding project that allowed them to go build this curriculum in their community colleges and technical schools to actually produce degreed engineering and technical management skill sets, so people can graduate with a degree, a bachelor's degree in things like robotics. So we've talked to them. We've actually sent some of our complex employees up there and enrolled them as students, as pathfinders to go through the program for two-way communication, right? So the students can tell the school, you might need to adjust your requirements in your curriculum a little bit in these areas to improve that program. And then they can also bring information back to us in terms of, you know, what does a graduate of this program look like? What is their skill set and ability? So really cool thing. And if we can get that kind of program to take root here in Georgia, which it will, it's not just beneficial to Robbins. Robbins is a big consumer of this, but the manufacturing sector in general is all going this way. So the entire state will clearly benefit. Let me make sure I get you the right number. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to mention is we are reevaluating what does it mean to be qualified for one of these jobs. You know, the traditional qualification is what's your degree, especially for engineers and scientists. You know, where is your degree specialty? Do you have a 4-year degree? Do you have a master's degree? So we're relooking that a little bit, rethinking it. Maybe for some of these jobs, you don't need a degree, you need a certification. You need some credentials. Is it better for me to have a person who is certified by Titan Robotics in that particular robot, certified by Cisco in a particular networking capability, has credentials in cybersecurity that I need to protect my networks? Is that more important, or at least as important as whatever degree they might have? So times are changing. We're kind of getting more flexible with how we look at what a qualification really is, and I'm pretty excited about, you know, being able to talk to folks and kind of point them to a very specific certification and credential that can make them valuable on day one when they come to apply for a job.
Interesting. Yeah, I can see how that will be beneficial for not only you, but the community. And yeah, you kind of have to think outside the box, right? To try to get the right workforce. What kind of outreach does Robbins do regarding STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, and how significant do you think that is in the future?
Well, how significant is easy. It is foundational to everything we do. The first two questions you asked about hiring folks and then what's the skill sets we need, those both go back to STEM. We view it as we need to get into the kindergarten level all the way up through the university level. At the very least, instill curiosity in the kids in STEM, but in the best case, a passion for STEM. The earlier you can get a passion for STEM instilled, the longer they have to prepare for that career, which will hopefully benefit all of us, whether they end up, and we don't view this as strictly a Air Force or Robbins Air Force Base mission. We view the STEM outreach as just it's a community good. If we get a kid interested in STEM and they never come to work for the Air Force or the government at all, but they go work for an engineering company outside the gate, we're still going to benefit from that. So we view it as a huge effort. Luckily, again, small staff, we don't have to do a lot of the legwork on this ourselves. We partner with some fantastic partners here in the local area. First and foremost is the National STEM Academy out at the museum. Great resource, and Brian Clough's personal opinion, one of the best in the country in terms of STEM outreach. The way they care, the way they put on programs, and they kind of have an unfair advantage because they have a huge STEM lab known as the Air Force Museum that you can walk out of the classroom and go see 100 examples of what STEM does for you and to your quality of life. So it's a really cool effort they have going on out there. We also, even though we've been working with them, Benek, I heard you called out. There you are, sir. We've been working with 21st Century Partnership for several years in terms of STEM outreach. This year, we actually consummated a formal memorandum of agreement, memorandum of understanding with them to continue to conduct STEM outreach through the Middle Georgia STEM Alliance. Gets us directly into secondary school programs, robotics competitions, Lego leagues, engineering and science fairs. And rather than us having to go out and do all of the legwork to set these things up, this partnership really allows us to provide kind of a manpower push. So our engineering and science workforce on the base stands ready when we get a call saying, hey, we're doing a robotics competition or a science fair at a particular school. We need judges, we need coaches, we need mentors. We just need people to show up and talk to the kids and show them how important their little project is in the grand scheme and how it applies to life. So it's, to me, a match made in heaven. We enjoy it. We get to allow our employees to do things that are really fun on the clock. They can go out and support these efforts in the community. So the last plug I'll say, because the list is endless of STEM, I hope it comes across of how important it is. But one of the really cool things we've implemented, again, in partnership with the STEM Academy and working with US Naval Academy, is a teacher development program workshop that happens on Saturdays every now and then out here at the museum. I think the next one is in about a week, might be next Saturday. Middle school teachers get to come in, they register for this free program. They spend a day doing some fun stuff, learning some curriculum from a physicist or an engineer or somebody highly qualified. They get a lesson plan, and they actually get to leave that workshop with a little box, a kit, that they can bring back to their classroom and actually teach STEM lessons and excite children right there in the classroom. And again, there's no expense to the teachers other than they have to spend a Saturday having some fun at the museum. So those kinds of programs are what we're always looking for, and the kind that we're really proud to continue supporting.
Yeah, there's no doubt that these programs are invaluable, not only to you, but also to our children that you're raising them with. So thank you, Colonel Clough. Appreciate you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the owner of Newton Development, Keith Newton.
Hello, welcome everyone. Newton Development is very excited to be a sponsor again this year. As I was preparing this long speech last night with my wife, she said, I want you to be unique, Keith. I want you to be something different. And I was trying to think as we practice this. So if y'all would humor me in this, will you please raise your hand if you have ever had a storage facility, if you know anybody who had a storage facility or rented a storage facility. So if you please raise your hand, keep your hands up. Now, if you have ever owned a home, know somebody who has a home or ever lived in a home, please keep your hands up. So I hope I made my wife proud in being unique and different. Okay? Newton Development was started in 1999. My wife Lisa and I founded the company. We're a residential and commercial developer here in Middle Georgia. I'd like to take this time to recognize my wife, Lisa. Just raise your hand out there, Lisa. I'd like to recognize Valerie Thomas, our project manager, and Miss Tiffany Smith, who is our assistant property director. So we have a very small team, but we get a lot done. So we just want to say we're proud. We're so dependent between the development and storage and the things we do. Robins Air Force Base, we would not be this successful if it weren't for you. I have the great privilege to introduce Colonel Christopher M. Dunlap. Colonel Christopher Dunlap is the commander of the 116th Air Control Wing, Robins Air Force Base, Georgia. He is responsible for the worldwide employment of the E-8C Joint Surveillance Target Attack Radar System. The wing trains, mobilizes, and deploys combat mission-ready aircraft, air crews, and support personnel to designated theaters of operation and conducts sustained operations providing uninterrupted command, control, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance in support of the Joint Force Air Component Commander. Please welcome to the stage Colonel Christopher M. Dunlap.
Colonel Dunlap, how did I get one of those? It just looks so comfortable.
I'll tell you what, after this, we can go out there and we can maybe exchange.
I doubt it. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Look at me, look at you.
I may have some extra ones, I'll see what I can.
Okay, all right, cool. Probably have to stretch it just. All right, so let's talk about JSTARS. We know JSTARS is coming to an end in 2024 here at Robins. Can you tell us what the timeline is for retirement and what the remaining time looks like for the JSTARS missions?
Absolutely. So before I start, I'm going to go back in time just a little bit. So everything kind of came about 2018, as Colonel Groves was mentioning. The National Defense Strategy has changed over the last several years. So in 2018, Secretary of Defense, United States Air Force made the decision that we need to divest in some of our current technologies and weapon systems so that we can get after the technologies and the weapon systems that we need for today's environment, and the environment that we have going further. So at that time, the decision was made to divest the JSTARS, and for those guys, such as myself, guys and gals that are Georgia Guardsmen, some of us have been doing this mission since 2002. That was pretty hard to swallow because we're pretty good at our job. But we did it. We said, okay, that the next three budgets, I'm sorry, the 22 to the 23 and now the 24 budget that's going to come out actually has the programming in effect to go ahead and divest the aircraft. So in 2022, we retired our first 4 aircraft. And those retired on schedule. And then now that we're in 23, the plan was to divest 8 aircraft. And then in 24, we're supposed to divest 4. Now, The schedule has changed, and it started to change in late 22, early 23 of this year, because the piece that we didn't know prior to 22 was what our tasking across the globe would be. So the Secretary of Defense gave us our tasking in late 22, and because of that, our tasking is not as great as it used to be. Our divestment schedule has actually moved to the left. So as of right now today, we have 10 aircraft that are retired. We have 6 remaining, but we're still doing work overseas. So today, we still have aircraft in both 116th and 461st personnel that are deployed overseas doing the job.
Can you tell us exactly where? No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Everywhere.
Don't get me upset.
We take pride in being able to see in various places around the world. So we still have folks that are overseas. Our last global requirement will take us through the end of October of this year. And then all of our airmen, all of our aircraft will be back in garrison. And the plan is we will retire. We will fly our last local mission in November. And then 02-9111, which was our last delivered of JSTARS, will be our last retired airplane. And it's actually not going to what we call the Air Force Boneyard. That aircraft's actually going to Kelly Air Force Base, where it will be used for a ground trainer. So the divestment schedule, which was supposed to be 22, 23, 24, has actually slid to the left, will be complete in November of 23. But that is beneficial to us because that will allow us to kind of get in front of these new mission sets that we have, which I think we're going to talk about next. And it also, at least on the ALC side, because they do maintenance on JSTARS here at Robins, it will also provide some resources for General Eberlin and his team to then use those resources for other weapon systems.
I tell you, one of the things that we appreciate about JSTARS is just how long we've done it well. But with the transition, one of the things that we were going to ask you about is the Advanced Battle Management Family of Systems, that ABMS. And I know that's in the works for the 116. Get in trouble if I don't say it right, sorry. 116 Air Control Wing. Can you tell us briefly what the new mission is and how these new missions will affect job opportunities at your wing? So kind of what we just called.
Sure, absolutely. So that's the goodness about the JSTARS sliding to the left is the 4 missions that are coming to Robins are huge for this base, huge for the National Defense Strategy. And I can say all 4 of these mission sets are going to play a major role in our national defense, probably 2035 and way beyond that. So for the folks that are in this room, that is a good thing as far as stability to the space and the local community. So for the 116th, which is your local Georgia Air National Guard, and we've been a TFI partner with Bo, Colonel Rice and his team, the 461st. Our organization is going to split up a little bit. We're still going to remain intact, but we're essentially going to be doing 2 different things. There'll be a slight integration, but it won't be the same integration that we've had in the past. For the 116th, the Georgia Air National Guard, our primary new mission is going to be Advanced Battle Management System, which the name itself, it's kind of confusing. That name is essentially a concept that the Air Force has to be able to manage sensors, manage domains, manage the joint force, manage information, integrate it, and then make decisions at a much faster rate. So it's not one thing, it's all kinds of things across the enterprise and across the globe. So the 116th, we're going to have 2 components of that. One is a fusion center and one is a logistics facility. Because JSTARS, my piece of JSTARS is operators and maintenance, and we have a ton of experience. Like I said, I've been doing this since 2002. The Air Force decided, hey, with that operational experience and that maintenance experience, what can we do with that to retain it? So the Fusion Center, which is a component of ABMS, is essentially going to be an ops facility that allows us to integrate and take information and intelligence to exploit it a little bit, to bring it together, and then disseminate it across the globe. And to do that, you need skill sets in all the different fields that we have in operations. It could be a pilot, it could be an engineer, it could be a navigator, it could be all kinds of skill sets. So it fits us greatly, and it will allow us to do that mission incredibly well. There's also a logistics facility that will be tied to that under the concept of agile combat employment. In tomorrow's Air Force, we're going to have 5th, 6th, 7th, and so on generation of weapon systems and platforms for many years to come. But we have to have the facilities that can support those. And those platforms need to be agile, need to be able to move around the United States and around the globe to train and then to be able to meet tomorrow's threats. So because of our maintenance background, we have the capability to manage a logistics support facility that will be able to service that 5th, 6th, and next generation platforms. So that's kind of the concept. Obviously, there's a little bit more to that in the classified world, but that is the concept. Now, the goodness to that is, like I said, in the National Guard, we have a lot of experience. That experience is being retained. So I have 1,453 airmen that are in my unit. This mission transformation affects 670 positions in both ops and maintenance. Well, guess what? That number's growing. They thought it was going to be, they promised at the beginning, hey, we're going to use your experience and we're going to give you this very important next generation mission. And we're going to keep your jobs and your resourcing the same. Well, what we've come to find out is these next missions are so important, critically important, and the technology has changed that it's actually going to be a growth. So I think that's good because as a National Guard, you know, I have 60% of my workforce is full-time, 40% of it's part-time. So a large portion of my organization are citizen airmen. And a large portion of those airmen also work with some of the entities that are in this room. So that's a good thing. The other part of the growth to this mission set for us is we will grow in officers. We will grow in officers. So when it comes to, like we were talking about STEM, advanced degrees, future technologies, we will have a growth in officers. So I think that's going to offer some opportunities, additional opportunities in these new mission sets that are coming.
We're excited. Sounds like you are.
I'm very excited. Life is good.
I love it.
Business is good.
Business is good. Thank you for coming up.
Yes, sir.
Please welcome Karen Fry, Market Vice President for Cox Communications.
Good afternoon. I apologize, I don't have an audience participation part to my remarks, but I'm kidding. I really don't. But I do want to say just thank you to everybody who is a Cox customer or future customer. We appreciate you very, very much. I'm going to keep this short. I'm just going to say that Cox is committed to supporting the communities that we serve and proudly salutes our armed forces and veterans. We understand the critical role Robins Air Force plays in keeping our country safe and region economically strong. It's my pleasure to introduce Colonel David J. Bo Rice. Colonel Rice is the Vice Commander of the 461st Air Control Wing at Robins Air Force Base. He is responsible for the worldwide employment of the E-8C Joint Surveillance Target Attack Radar System and the deployable Air Traffic Control and Landing System. The wing trains, mobilizes, and deploys combat mission-ready aircraft, air crews, and supports personnel to designated theaters of operation and conducts sustained operations, providing uninterrupted command, control, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance in support of the Joint Force Commander. Additionally, he is responsible for the mobilization and deployment of command and control systems, enabling both expeditionary airfield operations, supporting combatant commanders, and peacetime airfield operations, supporting humanitarian assistance and disaster relief missions. Please join me in welcoming Colonel Rice to the stage.
I just want you to know, I practiced pronouncing your name as well.
Hope it didn't take too long, did it? So I'm not sure whether I'm introverted or extroverted, and I certainly won't be unique, but I am cognizant of time, so I realize we're over, so I'll keep my remarks fairly short. But I will say with that introduction with Colonel Dunlap, who goes by Jag, so Jag and I were here, I came here in 2000, I think I met Jag in like 2002 as they transitioned from the B1 to the J-Stars, and it's really weird now going to a lot of events where you're talking about the sunsetting of a platform that both Jag and I were here at its infancy, and it's just a very different side of the spectrum. And we throw around a lot of numbers, but I would just remind folks that those J-Stars airplanes that we fly, and granted the government bought them later in life and they've had some modifications, and obviously they do a very sensitive and special mission. But those planes were built when the world did not know who the Beatles was. So let that sink in for a moment. So it's time to move forward. It's time to transition. It's time to, as many of our speakers said before, move on with the national defense strategy and get after that nuclear fight. So with that, back to the questions.
Well, I think you answered the first one that we had, so great job. Well, and I guess you could also talk about some of the challenges that you're facing with that transition. As you move into this new swing, one of the things that we were looking at is we're tracking that the 18th Airborne Command and Control Squadron and the 728th Battle Control Management Squadron have activated this year. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's a true statement. And just for a little context, and then I'll do the traditional pivot over here. So the 728th Battle Management Control Squadron stood up mid-February. At about the same time, we sort of closed down one of our first operational squadrons, our first of two being the 16th Airborne Command and Control Squadron. And sort of as that new mission, that distributed command and control mission reference we call Kingpin, which is kind of its call sign, as it stands up, that will be organized and executed and trained under the 728th. And then, and part of that, because all of this is using our own manpower to build the new organizations, obviously at the same time, if you're going to grow manpower, you didn't have to take manpower from somewhere else. So one squadron sort of sunsets and the new squadron grows. Now I'm going to pivot on you, right? Because you said challenges. The 461st were liberators, right? That sort of goes back to our heritage, all the way back to some amazingly heroic flights over the oil fields and Pulaski in World War II. But I don't know that we look at things as challenges so much as I think we look at opportunities. And if you said, hey, what are the challenges, or what I would like to call opportunities, I think we have two unique ones that people are focused on. And sort of at the more strategic level, one is the opportunity to close out a current mission that's been done really well by a lot of great people over a number of years. And so I think we have a very shared sense of responsibility with the Guard to do that well because of the legacy of J-Stars. And I think this story will be continued of J-Stars will be told for many years. I think there's literally thousands and thousands of people across the enterprise who are proud of those decades of work, going all the way back to its infancy in the 1980s in Melbourne, Florida, through the first Gulf War and all the way till today. So I think the first opportunity is we here today have a chance to finish that mission well. And then a second opportunity is to take a lot of that same experience that's on that back 40, as I like to call of the base. Take that same experience that's really steeped in ISR and command and control and operations, a lot of those things, and sort of develop the culture of the new mission, Kingpin in this case. Help develop and start that, much like a lot of us did here, 2.5 decades ago at Robins. So I think we feel a real responsibility to get that on the right foot. And so I would say those are, I think, our two greatest opportunities at the moment. So I'm sorry to pivot on you slightly, but anyway, all right. Hopefully that answers the question.
That answered both of them, as a matter of fact. And I think based on your alluding to the there's the rock star, Colonel Rice. I think everyone here can agree that this has been a great event. Got a chance to get to know what's going on with the local community as well as with Robins, the men and women of the Air Force Base. And so one of the things I wanted to remind y'all of, two announcements. One, your badges, if you'll just take those off and leave them on your table as we speak. And then May 17th, we have the Economic Outlook. We have a flyer on your table. You can scan that QR code, go ahead and sign up. And with that, we stand adjourned. Have a great day.
Thank you again for joining us for the 2023 State of the Base. For an event recap, the FY22 Economic Impact Report, and more information on the state